what religion brings to the table when it comes to forming communities, when it comes to forming bonds with fellow human beings, when it comes to imbibing meaning in our day-to-day life. And the reality is that what religion brings when it comes to forming communities and subgroups cannot be brought by any other system. We as human beings are social creatures. We require groups of people. We establish bonds with other people, and we form subgroups. We form socio-political communities. Now, how do people organize themselves? How do people form groups and bonds? There's a lot of different ways they do that. We're going to very quickly contrast two systems with the religion system, i.e., two different systems of forming bonds and loyalties, even though there are more than two, but for the purposes of today, we'll quickly do two. The first of them, which is the most ancient and the most well-known to you as Muslims because we study pre-Islamic history, and that is tribalism. One of the ways you form bonds, one of the ways you form societies is via the tribe. The Quraysh was one tribe, the Thaqif was another tribe, Hawazin was another tribe. We're all familiar with tribes. Tribalism still exists to a much lesser level in many parts of the world. By and large, most of us born and raised in America are disconnected from the realities of tribalism. However, were you to have been born in some areas in the Middle East, in some areas in South Asia, in some areas in the Far East, there's still a level of tribalism that is still present there. And the other system we're going to quickly look at is the one every one of us is innately familiar with, and that is nationality. Right? Another mechanism of dividing people and forming groups is nationality. So you have the tribal system, you have the nationality, and then you have the religious system, which is the ummah. So we have three different systems of forming collectives, of forming entire communities. My point is that what religion brings, and of course specifically what Islam brings, is the most logical, the most rational, the most powerful, and the most efficient mechanism of forming bonds. And what anything else brings to the table is superficial, imaginative, vacuous, ambiguous. This is the contention, and you decide. So, and I've given much longer lectures about this, obviously. All of these talks obviously are condensed because we have so much to cover, but I want you to introduce the ideas and then do the research on your own. So let's briefly look at these three competing systems. What are the three systems? Tribalism, nation state, nationality, and ummah. The first way we'll contrast these three is simple definitions. What is a tribe? A tribe is a collective, is a group of people who share a common ancestor. Simple as that. A tribe is a group of people that share one common ancestor, whether 4 generations ago, 7 generations ago, in the case of Quraysh, 17 generations ago, whatever it might be, there's one person, the biological descendants of that person form the tribe. Okay, that's the definition of a tribe. A nation state are a group of people that share the same passport. Okay? We're all Americans or British or Canadians. A nation state, you're sharing the same nationality. And of course, an ummah, you are sharing the same religion. That's a simple definition. Jayyid. Each one of these three has to have what is called a founding myth, i.e., something that gives a sense of recognition, exceptionalism, a sense of grandiose agenda to that particular sub-community. When it comes to the tribe, always the founding member is given powers, maybe not supernatural, but the most generous or the most charismatic or the most warrior. You have the myth of the founding member of that tribe. Okay, the way that the Quraysh gave, that the legends develop of the founding person of the tribe. When it comes to nation state, you also have a group of people in this country, they're called the founding fathers, who are given a semi-sacred status. And we are taught their stories and their legends. And we're taught that, they were better than normal people. And they were, people that, in terms of their morality, in terms of their generosity, in terms of their vision, they are better than the average person. These are founding myths. And of course, when it comes to the ummah, who is the founder of the ummah? The Prophet ﷺ. Now, obviously, we start seeing the holes in the other two narratives. Everybody knows that the founding legends of tribes and of nation states are exactly legends. The very people that we look up to of the founding fathers were corrupt people. They were traitors to their own king. They had slaves. And so we can go on and on and on. These are all legends that we all know now. And you all know the woke culture is now, Christopher Columbus. I grew up in an era where nobody criticized Christopher Columbus. I grew up in an era in the 80s where, Christopher Columbus was a hero. If anybody dared criticize him. Turns out he's a mass murderer. Turns out he's a complete pillager, rapist, etc. Everybody knows this now. So these founding myths are absolute legends. They have no shred of credibility. When it comes to the founding of a religion, is the founder of a religion a morally upright person? Without a doubt. Is he actually chosen by God? Yes. You can't compete with the founding myths of nation states and tribes versus the founding of a religion. We actually believe the founder, the person, but by founder, of course, I mean, obviously, the Prophet ﷺ here. Obviously, technically, the religion of Islam goes back to Adam alayhi salam, but you get my point here. The founder is genuinely the holiest person ever. There is no mythology in this regard. When it comes to service rendered, every one of these three systems needs to convince its people to sacrifice for the greater collective. As a member of a tribe, you must be taught a narrative that incentivizes you to defend the tribe, to fight for the tribe, to put your life down for the tribe. As a member of the nation state, you must be taught a narrative that causes you to sacrifice for the nation state, to fight for the nation state, to die for the nation state. And the same goes for the ummah as well. What can the tribe and what can the nation state and what can the ummah do to incentivize people to fight and defend for the greater collective? Well, the tribes, the Qur'an mentions this. And we know this from reality, that what would the tribes do? They would make poems in your honor. When you died for their cause, they would versify. And that was the highest honor to be given. And the Qur'an references this. فَإِذَا قَضَيْتُ مَنَاسِكَكُمْ فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَذِكْرِكُمْ آبَاءَكُمْ أَوْ أَشَدَّ ذِكْرًا. When you finish the rites of Hajj, rather than remembering your ancestors, because that's what they would do. When they finished Hajj, they would remember the feats of their ancestors, because they're honoring. Why are they honoring the dead? Because they want to incentivize the living to get to the honor of being amongst those that are honored when they die. You understand this point here, right? You are honoring the dead amongst the living because you want to incentivize the living to do what those dead have done, so that when they are dead, they too can be honored via these poems. The same goes for the nation state. The nation state also creates a almost mystical, reality of sacrifice, of service. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I wish I had 1,000 lives to give. I would give everyone for my country. And the way that we honor those that have served the country. This is a reality of all countries. We have special days, special commemorations, special places of burial. We have special rituals. We have the 21-gun salute. When a person dies in the military, they're given a burial that no other person is given. The president himself gives a special medal of honor. A dignitary comes to the house of the person that was died and presents a very special award. When I board the plane, every single time I board the plane, before it comes to anybody else, the first group is who? Servicemen, military, right? We show them honor because we have to create a narrative where we incentivize people. They need to sacrifice for the greater good. Now, brutal, honest question. Of what value is a 21-gun salute once you're dead? Of what value is a medal given to your brother, sister, your mother, your father when you're rotting in the grave? Of what value is a poem the Jahili Quraysh would sing in your honor and you have no idea of that poem? This is an illusion that is meant quite literally to brainwash the living. How are you benefiting when your brother gets a medal when you have died in service for the country? When a 21-gun salute is done, and of course we believe you're not even going to know of that 21-gun salute. You are disconnected from that reality. In contrast, what can a religion promise you when you sacrifice for the religion? And you all know the answer to that. What can a religion promise you? What can Allah guarantee you? That is a genuine, bona fide, tangible, real blessing. You see the difference here. There is no equivalence in this dunya. Doing something for the ummah, benefiting the ummah, you will get thawab, you will get ajr, you will get barakah. In the akhirah, So many blessings are given for those that helped the ummah out and sacrificed and struggled in the cause of the ummah, right? So this is something that is well understood. There is no competition. So each one of these systems wants you to sacrifice for the greater collective, but it is only the religion that can actually reward you for sacrificing for the greater collective. The rest is just myth, illusion, fable tales, right? Fairy tales. Other things can be said as well. How does an outsider join? How does an outsider join into, if you're not a part of that tribe, if you're not a part of that nation state? How do you join? Fact of the matter is, if you're not a member of a tribe, technically you can never really join that tribe. You might be a client in pre-Islamic Arabia. They had something called mawla, and a mawla was a second-class person. You're never a Qurashi. You're a mawla. Right? You are a second-class person. The only way to be a member of the tribe is something not in your control. You don't control your father. You don't control who gave birth to you. And if you happen to have been born in another tribe, that's it. You can never actually technically leave that tribe. Even if the tribe kicks you out, everybody will know, oh, he was once a part of that tribe. Biologically, you're connected. And another tribe can only partially adopt you, because it's about blood, DNA. The nation state is more ambiguous, depends on country to country. In the country we find ourselves in, there are two ways to acquire our citizenship. One of them is being challenged by the current president. The first is to be born here, right? If you are born here, once again, you don't choose where your mother gives birth to you. It's beyond your control. Where you were born is not in your hands. I happen to have been born in Houston, Texas. Hence, I am a citizen of this country. I did not choose. It was not my volition. It was Allah's qadr. And there are many who want to be citizens and who are not able to acquire citizenship. Otherwise, it requires a long process. Every country has its own, difficulties to do. As for the ummah, who controls whether you're part of the ummah or not? Does it matter where you were born? Does it matter which language you speak? Does it matter the ethnicity of your parents? You decide whether you want to convert or not. You have the ability to enter the ummah. It's in your hands. That is a power. That is something that is a privilege that anybody can have. Both tribalism and nation state put artificial barriers to membership. Barriers that don't make any sense. Why is it that if somebody's born in Detroit, they are American, and if they're born in Windsor, 5 minutes away, Detroit and Windsor are twin cities, they're literally connected almost. You can see the houses, there's a river between them, if you know, you know. 5 minutes, literally. If you're born in Windsor, you cannot be an American. What's the difference here? Why is there a metaphysical distinction being given to an imaginary line if a woman gives birth on one side versus the other side? But such is the reality of nation state. It is an imaginary line. By the way, there's an amazing book by one of the most famous political scientists of the last generations. His name is Benedict Anderson. You should read this. It is called Imagined Communities. It's a really good book. It's a really simple book. It's almost required reading for anybody interested in political science. Imagined Communities. And Benedict Anderson basically discusses the fact that nation states are a figment of a collective imagination. Everybody just wants to come together and believe it. It doesn't actually exist. And he was one of the top political scientists in the 70s and 80s, and he began to deconstruct, if you like, the notion of nationalism. So that's a book you should read here. But again, so going back to our point here, is that joining as an outsider is impossible for the tribe. Joining as an outsider has some barriers in the nation state, and in some nation states it is getting more and more difficult. Our own, you see the reality of our own government trying to make it more difficult to become a member of the nation state. And in some countries in Europe it is even more difficult, and in some countries in the Middle East and other places it is well nigh impossible. It's almost like the tribe, by the way, like one of the major Muslim countries. I don't want to mention names here, but it's almost like a tribe. Actually, effectively it is a tribe. You cannot become a member of that nation state unless you happen to belong to their particular tribes. So in reality, it is a tribal system. As for the ummah, I mean, it's not fair. Wallahi, think about it. It's not fair that you can't be a member of another group just because your mother gave birth to you somewhere. But when it comes to the ummah, Allah made all human beings equal. You decide. You don't want to be a Muslim, you can't blame anybody for not being a member of the ummah. That's on you. One can also give other comparisons of the three. So for example, how does each of these three treat the other? Each of these three discriminates against the other, there's no question about it. Every tribe thinks it is exceptionally good. Every nation state thinks it is the best nation state. This is what it is taught, right? Every single nation has this notion that we are the best and we have a shared heritage and we have this and we have that, right? The reality is that no one tribe is better than another, and no nation state is inherently more sacred than another. And you will be given a second-class citizenship or a second-class treatment if you are not a member of that tribe or nation state and happen to be amongst them. Anytime you travel to another country, anytime you enter that country, the signs are going to say, I was just in England 2 days ago, literally 2 days ago. Soon as you land, British citizens turn right, everybody else turn left. And when you turn left, much longer lines, mistreatment. What are you doing here? What's your purpose of visit here? You can be denied the right to, enter the country. You're, of course, in the Western secular worlds, technically, you're not supposed to be treated differently, but we all know that too is changing. Now, fact of the matter is, we should not be shy to say this. In the Ummah system, if you live as a non-Ummah member amongst the Ummah system, you will be given some perks, but not the same perks as the Ummah. And there's nothing wrong with this. Green card holders, people that are on visas, have to pay taxes. They cannot vote. They don't have the same rights as citizens. They're treated differently in this country. Everybody who's on a visa knows this. And we take this as granted. We don't bat an eyelid. We are accustomed to automatically assume, just because your mother gave birth to you elsewhere and you got an American visa to come here to study, to work, you don't have the same rights I do. And we think this is legal discrimination. We don't even think, that's not fair. Why doesn't he have the same rights politically, legally, lawyer access, everything? It's not fair. It's not his fault. Now, when it comes to the Ummah, non-Muslims say, oh, look how you treat Ahl al-Kitab. Look how the dhimma status is. But in reality, you guys are doing the exact same things of second-class citizen, but the difference is, it's not my choice where my mother gave birth to me. It's not my choice, the nation state. As for the Ummah, it is my choice. So anybody who wants to live amongst an Ummah in a Darul Islam and chooses to not embrace the Ummah, well, yes, there are going to be some differences in laws. And we should not be shy to say this. There might be slightly different taxes. There might be slightly different privileges, as is the case anywhere in the world when you are not a member of the tribe or the nation state, right? You don't have the same perks, but we are being brainwashed to believe, oh, the nation state has a stronger bond than the bond of the Ummah. Now we get to another point here, which is actually the key, the crux of the matter. And that is the question: what effectively combines, what realistically combines all of the people of these three subgroups? What really combines the members of a tribe? What really combines the members of a nation state? What really combines the members of the Ummah? And this is where the strength of the Ummah and the weakness of the other two is most blatantly manifested. Even though in all of these areas I've shown the strength of the Ummah. But it is the final point where we see the ultimate strength of religion. What combines tribe is blood. Usually culture, but not necessarily, right? Your cousins back home don't share the same culture as you. They hardly speak the language you do. They share the same blood. If you were members of a tribe, you would be members of the tribe. Your first cousins back home are so radically different from you. You all know this. How they think, how they look at the world, how they understand, how they digest information. But they are technically your tribe. But their values are a little bit different than yours. As for the nation state, what is the combining factor that unites everybody from the same nation state? Is it language? Is it language? No. Is it culture? No. Is it values? Is it ethics? Is it laws? What combines all Americans that are American? What makes them American? In reality, the nation state is the most fragile, imaginative, constructed community possible. There is nothing that necessarily combines two people of the same nation state. And all you need to do is look at modern American politics to see this reality. There is no shared understanding of the world, of values, of anything. The radical differences even between the right and the left, and these are just two strands, how each of them wants to define what it means to be an American, right? Is so different, is as if you're looking at two different systems, and yet both are claiming to represent the nation state. Both are claiming patriotism. Both are claiming to speak on behalf of the peoples, and nobody can claim to speak on behalf of all of us American peoples. So the reality is, factually speaking, anthropologically speaking, the nation state really is a collective, imaginative community. It has nothing in common, absolutely nothing in common. Two people that share the same passport could disagree on each and every facet of life, and yet they are supposed to be taught a narrative. They're supposed to, again, this is all myth, it's legend. They're supposed to be told you're part of a greater project. What greater project when we can't even agree what the project is? We can't even agree what the conception of the project is. We can't even agree on what is the betterment of our societies. How can we be a part of a greater good together? But the narrative has to be taught. The myth has to be brainwashed. Otherwise, the collective falls apart. And so we are taught of American exceptionalism, American patriotism, of this great country, etc., etc. And I speak, by the way, not just as an American, but in reality, all nation states do this, right? Understand, even as I criticize one, I'm literally criticizing all of them as figments of the imagination. Contrast this with what makes the ummah one. Where does one begin? What doesn't make us one? Actually, what doesn't make us one? Culture and language and skin color. Trivial differences. What makes us one? A shared ethos, a shared ethics, a shared law, a shared sacred language, a shared sense of heritage, a shared sense of identity, a shared sense of ritual, a shared sense of etiquette, how we eat and how we're generous, it's all together, a shared sense to festival. I mean, on and on and on. If you really think about it, what is really important in forming bonds is what religion forms bonds with. And what is superficial, like skin color and language and where your mother is born, the religion says secondary. And it is ethnicity and tribe and nation state that takes the superficial and ignores the more important realities of life. Look at the differences between the two. What the nation state brings you, what tribalism brings you, is completely either imaginary or beyond your control. You didn't choose your tribe. You didn't choose where your mother gave birth to you. What the ummah brings you, what Islam brings you, is the actual ethos of your philosophy of life, your shared heritage, your values. And that is a connection. And all of you know this when you travel anywhere in the world. You meet a Muslim, there's an automatic connection with that Muslim. Even if you don't necessarily speak that language, the same culture, there is a shared identity. You know, you can understand so much about that person. So what really brings transcendental meaning to relationships is religion. As for the nation state and tribe, this is either completely a figment of the imagination, you have to be brainwashed to believe it, or it is beyond your control, and it's not fair to categorize people on things beyond their control. It's not fair to base relationships on skin color, on ethnicity, on tribes. That's racist, to be honest. And yet that is exactly what tribalism and others do here. So the reality then is that anthropologically speaking, what religion brings cannot be brought by any other system here. To add to that, a little bit of a tangent, you can make this a different point, or you can say it's the same point again. I'm kind of lost how many points I've done in the last 4 weeks. But anyway, the point is just to give you overall the benefits of religion. To add to that, is another aspect that religion brings. And that is the communal rights that bring definition and sanctity to our lives. Once again, what religion brings, no other system can bring. And in fact, this is a very ironic reality. Even those that are not religious, 99% of them have to become religious, or at least participate in religious festivals during specific milestones of their life, such as birth, such as marriage, such as death. No other system will bring people together and imbue meaning upon these milestones in your life. Bring about a sense of sacredness, a sense of sanctifying, a sense of genuine, bringing tradition and family together. No other system does this other than religion. And this is where you see this blatantly, that even those who have abandoned religion, even those that don't believe in God, they're going to be at church when their relatives die. They're going to be at church when their cousins get married. They're going to be at church when the baptism ceremonies happen, because there is no meaning for these milestones in life without religion. No other system can confer upon our lives a sense of sanctity, a sense of sacredness other than religion. And this is why so many even Muslims began to practice Islam after some tragedy happens, when a person dies. It's that tragedy of coming together, attending the janazah, being a part of the mourning rituals here, that reignites their own iman here. Religion is what gives sanctity to the milestones of life. The commemoration of significant points in one's life can only come from aspects of religion. And what happens when you have these commemorations, when you have these sacred rituals, when you have these collectives, you find community bonds forming. You find comfort. You find joy. You find frankly, a type of sanctification. Marriage is the classic example. What differentiates even non-religious folks when they want to get married? What's the key thing? They might be living together, as happens over here. Years they're living together, but they all feel when they actually get married, that is a big stepping stone. What's the difference? You were living together, sleeping together, literally for years on end. And when they go to the church or the synagogue or whatever, all of a sudden they feel a sense of awe. Oh, but now we are married. What happened? What was the difference here? It is a sanctification. It is something that no other system can bring to your life. And that's where even those that are non-religious, they have to become religious during these important milestones in one's life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally mentions this in the Qur'an in multiple verses. For example, when Ibrahim is building the Kaaba, Ibrahim makes a dua to Allah that as he's building the Kaaba, وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا, and show us our rites of worship. This is a profound verse here. We cannot construct our own rituals. We need a deity, a religion to tell us the rites. Mansak is rituals. And Ibrahim is understanding, I don't have rituals. I need that emptiness. I need something in my life. And so as he's building the Kaaba, he says, oh my Lord, وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا, show us how to worship you. That's what's going to bring meaning to our life. And Allah says in Surah Hajj, verse 62, وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكًا هُمْ نَاسِكُوهُ. For every nation, we have given them a system, a code that they are going to follow. Every system has its code. And also in Surah Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْبُدْنَ جَعَلْنَاهَا لَكُمْ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ لَكُمْ فِيهَا خَيْرٌ. The ritualistic sacrifice of animals, we have made it an act of worship. So, mention the name of Allah. Now, for most of us in America, I'll be very blunt here, we haven't connected with this ritual of worship because we haven't seen Eid sacrifices that much. For those that were born and raised in Pakistan, you know what happens in Eid al-Adha. And there's a genuine communal festival and whatnot. For those born in most Muslim countries, Eid al-Adha, there is a spirit that comes of, feeding the hungry or feeding the poor and whatnot, of, the sacrificial animals are decorated, a whole, culture comes. Us born in America, we are disconnected from that culture and we don't know this. But Allah is saying, وَالْبُدْن, budun are the sacrificial animals. We made it a sha'air. We made it a ritual. لَكُمْ فِيهَا خَيْرٌ. There is benefit to you in these rituals. In Eid al-Adha, the rituals of Eid al-Adha, there is benefit for you. There is a communal benefit in coming together and all of you celebrating in a similar manner. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Surah Ma'idah, verse 48, that لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. For every ummah, we have made a code of law and a way of conduct. Allah has legislated different shari'ahs and different codes of conduct for every single nation. This is what provides nation real meaning. What is a deen? How does one define deen? Let us look first at the Qur'an and then give some anthropological and cultural and critical and general definitions, and then inshallah open the floor for Q&A. If you look at the Qur'an defines deen in a number of ways. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. What is Yawmiddin over here? You all know, the day of judgment. So one of the aspects of deen is accountability. Deen makes you accountable to something. For something to be a deen, there must be a level of, I have to answer for what I'm doing. And this is where generally a higher power comes in. That's one aspect of deen. Another aspect, Surah Shura, verse 21. أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهِ. Do they have other gods that have legislated from the deen what Allah has not allowed them to legislate? So a second definition of deen is legislation, code of conduct, ethics, values, systems. أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاءَ شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ. The deen provides a framework, a template of life. The deen provides a code of conduct. The deen is your philosophy of living, your inner moral compass, and everybody has some code that they live by. Everybody has some code that they live by. That code is a deen. In another verse in the Qur'an, the famous story of Yusuf alayhi salam, verse 76 in Yusuf, مَا كَانَ لِيَأْخُذَ أَخَاهُ فِي دِينِ الْمَلِكِ. He could not have taken his brother in accordance with the deen of the Malik. Now this is really interesting here, because Allah uses deen in a system that in and of itself doesn't have a God. Because Allah is talking about the laws of Egypt. Allah is talking about the laws of Egypt. And Allah is saying, He could not have held Binyamin in accordance with the laws of Egypt unless he did this ruse of, the keys and all that, the goblet, the drinking cup. You understand the drinking cup? You understand the story. Allah uses deen here to then signify governance and laws, which is similar to number 2 but slightly different. The point here, therefore, we can extract from the Qur'an that what makes a religion perfectly a religion is a system of conduct and a framework of living that also has an accountability. This is the perfect deen. You have a system of conduct and a governance and a framework of living in which you're also going to be accountable for your actions. However, if one of these 3 pillars is not there, you still have a partial deen. The perfect deen will have all of them. But if one of these is not there, but you're still having part of these 3 aspects of the concept of deen, you can still call it a deen. And therefore, from the Islamic perspective, any system of ethics, any system that you live by, any system that you believe in is in reality your deen. This is very clear from the Qur'an. How do Western academics define religion? One of the interesting aspects of the definition of religion is the following. Earlier anthropologists seemed to define religion more metaphysically, i.e., something to do with the divine, than modern researchers and critical thinkers and philosophers. In other words, there is a marked shift in understanding that religion is not just about a God. And even modern secular humanists, modern political philosophers, modern postmodernistic, if you like, thinkers are now defining religion without necessarily mentioning a higher being, because they understand that religion is more than just a higher being. So to give you a very brief sampling, one of the founders of anthropology, E.B. Tylor, in 1850 or something, he writes, his definition is, religion is the belief in spiritual beings. So 170 years ago, this is very simple. It's like, religion means you're believing in something supernatural, spiritual, beyond this world. Emil Durkheim, and all of you who study sociology know who Durkheim is. Durkheim defines religion as a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. A unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things which unite into a single community called the church, and all who adhere to them are part of that collective. So this is from a sociological perspective. Again, sacredness is invoked. Another famous anthropologist of the last century, Clifford Geertz, again, an iconic name in religion, in the sociology of religion, anthropology of religion. Clifford Geertz writes, religion is a system of symbols which acts to establish powerful, pervasive, and long-lasting moods and motivations in men by formulating conceptions of a general order of existence, and it goes on and on. So, point is, for him, religion is something that provides mystical meaning, supernatural meaning to your life. The Oxford Dictionary, the most latest definition of religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power. So you have these basic definitions, all of which involve something that is supernatural, mystical, superhuman, a god. This is, I would say, antiquated. And most modern definitions of religion actually do not even mention the concept of a god anymore. And in fact, one of the most important seminal minds who began this shift is somebody that I want to introduce you today in the next 5 minutes, and that is still alive right now, Talal Asad. Talal Asad. Talal Asad is one of the most prominent postmodernist anthropologists of our times, and he is the son of the famous Muhammad Asad. If you don't know who Muhammad Asad is, you should definitely Google and find out. Muhammad Asad was a Jewish convert to Islam back in the 1920s and 30s. He traveled to Saudi Arabia, met King Abdul Aziz, the founder, became a Saudi citizen, married a Bedouin lady in Mecca, and in the 1930s gave birth to Talal Asad. So Talal Asad's father is a Polish Jew, and his mother is a Bedouin Arab. I just find this so bizarre. So he has cousins that are Polish Jews, first cousins, and he has cousins that are Saudi, Makkawi, Bedouin. Like literally, this is like Talal Asad then grew up in Arabia. His father became the first foreign minister of Pakistan back in the 50s, and then he retired to Grenada, and then he passed away in the 80s or something, early 90s, I forgot when. So Muhammad Asad, that's the father. He translated the Qur'an, the message of the Qur'an. He translated Sahih Bukhari, very well-known, intellectual of the Ummah. His son is Talal Asad. Now Talal Asad, we don't really know his religion, to be honest. He's very quiet about that. But he is a world-famous anthropologist, and he has done some innovative, ingenious research about the reality of secularism. And he has single-handedly shaped the discourse of modern secularism in the academy. He is a well-known academic. And what Talal Asad has demonstrated in a number of books, firstly in Genealogies of Religion in 1993, and then in 2003 he released his magnum opus, The Formation of the Secular. Listen to this now. Talal Asad argues, and his argument is so powerful that it has shifted the academy, that secularism is not a neutral concept. Secularism pretends to be neutral. Secularism pretends it is aloof. But secularism is a political project that shapes with and competes with religion. And Asad has shown that the assumption that secularism is neutral is absolutely false. It is a historical project rooted in Western supremacy, in a version of de-sanctified Christianity, i.e., I'm summarizing a lot of his stuff here. You could not have secularism from any faith tradition other than Christianity. Secularism emerges from failed Christianity. And therefore, it is correct to view secularism as a type of modern Christianity minus Jesus Christ. You cannot assume secularism is neutral. Secularism is its own political and cultural system. And it is a specific way of organizing society that is based on Western Christian traditions. It is not neutral. It has never been neutral. But it wishes to assume neutrality even as it exerts its supremacy against religion, and especially against the religion of Islam. And he has a number of very profound points here. Of them, the very notion that religion should be a private matter, that religion should not be something public, that we need to separate religion from the public and private. He argues this notion cannot stem from any faith other than Christianity. The very notion of religion being private is not something that any other mind would possibly think of. No Jewish person could say this. No Muslim could say this. It is coming from a paradigm of Christianity. Only Christianity, which doesn't have a series of laws by and large. It doesn't have a sharia. It doesn't have a system. Only Christianity can come forth and say, oh, let us remove religion from public life here. And by insisting that religion be confined to personal space, secularism forces a specific definition of religion onto other people that might fit on Christianity easily, but it doesn't fit on non-Christian faith traditions. Hence all of the problems Muslims have living in secular lands, and even Orthodox Jews have living in secular lands. Do you understand this point here, right? By defining religion in a manner that is not conducive to other faith traditions, only to Christianity, automatically secularism is having a power dynamics. It's giving a false definition, a false dichotomy of separating the private from the public. You can't separate the private from the public except in a religion that doesn't have ethical values and laws, that doesn't have a sharia, which is Christianity. Otherwise, public and private all come together. And of course, he mentions the most obvious example of this, which is, of course, what we see around the world, especially the Western lands, about Muslim dress code, female dress code here, right? The very notion that the hijab is a threat to secularism. This clearly, and this is in France and others, is well known, even in England and other places, the niqab was banned, is still banned in so many countries here. This is coming with a loaded understanding, a selective picking and choosing of what fits into the secular narrative, which is its own version of religion. As well, secularism's insistence on individualism and personal autonomy, the freedom of my choice to do as I please. Talal Asad argues, this is a notion of morality that is not stemming from many other faith traditions in which it is not about me, myself, and I only. It is about the collective good, the family, the rights of other people. The notion of privileging my personal rights over the rights of family, over the rights of other people, is not a notion that is stemming from every single culture. It is only stemming from a particular culture and a particular faith tradition. So the point here that he's saying is that secularism is not just the absence of religion. It is an active force that is competing with and reshaping religion. It is a force that is not meant to be neutral. It is a force that is meant to be active in reshaping religions that are not conducive to its version of religion. So nobody should assume that secularism is fair and impartial. Rather, secularism has its own trajectory, its own values, and its own agenda, which is quite literally to change other faith traditions in order that it matches with its understanding of religion, which is one that is stemming from its own unique history, which is the failed Western civilization project. As you know, Christianity has failed. We're going to talk about this later on. So to conclude here, therefore, the fact is that we as Muslims can and should understand secularism as being a type of deen. That's just bluntly, I'm just saying this. Secularism is a type of deen. How and why? I'll give you 5 examples and we'll open the floor for Q&A. Number 1, just like religions have doctrines and moral codes and ideologies, so too secularism has its rigid belief systems, its rigid understandings of political correctness, of progressive moral codes, which operate with the same zeal as religious commandments do. Again, look at how non-Muslims view the freedom of sexuality, LGBT rights or whatnot. The passion with which they're defending those rights, and they think them to be correct, or First Amendment freedoms, right? Everybody has the right to practice their own religion. That is an idea. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm simply saying it is dogma. It is a belief. And it is taken as a given. And if you dare challenge it, you are not a part of their establishment. So what you have here, point number one, doctrines and morality. Religion has its version, secularism has its version. Number two, you have scriptures or documents that are considered to be sacred or semi-sacred. When it comes to our American secularism, it is the Constitution. Nobody really has the right to challenge the Constitution. Now, understanding, they don't say it's from God, but in the end of the day, they give it a certain metaphysical weight. That is semi-religious, quasi-religious. I agree. It's not as religious as Christians view the Bible or as Muslims view the Qur'an or whatever, but it is quasi-religious. It is semi-mystical. It is a founding document. Number three, there are rituals and symbolisms and ceremonies that both religious folks and secularists do. In our religion, we have obviously plenty of rituals. In the secular side of things, so many aspects of our culture, whether it is standing for the flag, whether it's showing respect, whether it is reverence for the ideological slogans, whether it is even the burning of the flag was a massive controversy when I was growing up. I remember the Supreme Court actually had a verdict on this back in, was it 91, 92, where it went to the Supreme Court. Can you burn the flag or not? And that's allowed in America. It's not allowed in many other countries. You're not allowed to show disrespect to the flag of other countries. You will go to jail. So there are symbols and rituals that are done. In England, there's a whole ritual of poppy seeds on the remembrance of the dead. Here we are in the soldiers that gave their lives for the country. And we as well, we have memorial days. We have celebratory days in this country. Number four, both religion and secularism have certain beliefs and certain ultimate meanings that they ascribe to life. When it comes to religion, it's understood who created us, where we're going. When it comes to humanism, existentialism, there is, especially American secularism, there is this notion of American, if you like, now again, this is a bit ambiguous here, but by and large, there is this notion amongst most Americans that our job, our purpose is to spread peace and democracy in the world. We are almost semi-appointed by some divine being to bring about betterment in the world. There's this inevitable arc of democracy, arc of justice, that there's almost an eschatology, if you like, of us doing something greater and more grandiose. And again, the example of us interfering in the Middle East, hardly anybody, really, when it comes to the people in power, we're not talking about average people. When it comes to people in power, hardly anybody is able to question why we are in every single country in the world. It's just understood. We have this exceptionalism. Who has given us this right? Nobody can answer that question. And then, of course, the final point, excommunication and heresy. Leaving the faith brings about political and social repercussions, and leaving the dogma of secularism, saying something that goes against the dogma of secularism, will bring about a cancellation known as the cancel culture, public shaming, career destruction, exclusion from mainstream discourse. You will be shunned. You might even be politically punished. You might even be economically punished in some countries. In America, we by and large cannot politically we cannot put somebody in jail, generally speaking, for First Amendment issues. But in many other countries, if you cross a certain line, you will be punished. Just like in the Sharia, if you cross a certain line, they will be punished. Bottom line, and with this, inshallah, open the floor, there are certainly parallels between secularism and religion. And for our purposes, we can say that modern Western secularism is a type of deen.